which is in this chapter's discussion of the sphere of Chesed. And this manifestation, the eighth, is Hava Shalom Ben Adam L'Chaveroi, the bringing of peace, establishing of peace and harmony between a person and his friend. Ben Adam L'Chaveroi. It's kind of a contradiction. Between a person and his friend. Bringing peace between a person and his friend. If he's his friend, they're in peace. And if they're not in peace, then why is it called his friend? What does that mean? Ben Adam L'Chaveroi. I mean, the Pashup shot seems to be between a person and his fellow man. Chaveroi. In this case, it doesn't mean chaver, friend. It means his fellow man. Or it could be referring to Ben Adam L'Chaveroi, between a person and the person who should be his friend. So when you bring the peace between them, it will be his friend. We find, for example, in on Purim, when it's a mitzvah to give Mishloach Manos, Ish L'Re'ehu, a sending of gifts from one person to his Re'ehu. There it's not Chaver, it's Re'ehu. It's just his friend, but it's not like Chaver, which means his fellow man. Re'ehu literally means his friend. The idea is that the gift should be given between people in order to be Marbe Shalom, to increase peace between people. But interestingly enough, the halacha is that it's actually preferable to give to somebody that you're not in such good terms with. He's not your friend. That's the pshat. To be Marbe Shalom ben Ish L'Re'ehu, to a person who should be his friend. They're not in a state of peace. But through the mutual giving, hopefully that there will be some peace which will be established. And I think we find a similar halacha regarding helping a person unload the mule that's buckling under its load. If you find the donkey of your enemy buckling under its load, don't refrain from helping, rather you shall surely unload with him. So there's a special mitzvah to help this person who you're not in good terms with, in order to do right. So helping him is a way of catalyzing a better relationship between you and him. So according to this, then, Hava Shalom Ben Adam L'Chaveroi is talking about bringing peace not among two people who are in a state of accord, but rather two people who are in a state of discord. And you're bringing peace between them. So all of the different acts of establishing peace between people will therefore have a parallel effect on the spiritual realm. So you have two people arguing, they're bickering, or not getting along well, and there's something that you can do to kind of referee between them and maybe bring them closer to one another, if not outright establish peace, but perhaps diffuse animosity. And all the more so if you could actually make some positive feeling between them, have them make up, become friends, that would be a very great thing. When a person does any of these specific acts which are associated with bringing peace among people, among fellow Jews, between Jews and non-Jews, amongst humanity itself, that's a very good thing. That goes a long way towards establishing balance and harmony in the spiritual realm as well. So when two people are arguing, it creates negative, harmful energy. And since there's a correlation between the physical and the spiritual, as we mentioned, through the 5 levels of soul, nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechidah, if the nefesh is all stirred up in anger and tension and animosity, so that's going to have effect on the ruach and the neshama, the chaya, and the yechidah, which is going to put things out of balance in the spiritual realm as well. And if you have two people who are arguing and angry with each other, so it's going to be creating negative energy in their environment and also into the spiritual realm as well. And think about the fact that you come into a room, two people are having a very pleasant conversation. You open up the door, even without necessarily even seeing the people, just you feel immediately there's an ambience of nicety, pleasure in the room. And you feel immediately, oh, excuse me, am I interrupting? You're having a personal conversation? Or you might come into a room where two people have just been arguing. They might not be saying a single word right now, but you open the door like, whoa, Excuse me, I'll come back at another time. And you feel the energy in the air is one of animosity, of tension, right? So without even seeing their faces, without even hearing any words, you just open the door and you've got this feeling, right? Whoa, the air is really thick in this room. I'll come back another time, right? So these are the examples that show you that the feelings that we have create energy, and that energy is emitted into the environment. It's emitted not only into the physical environment, it's emitted into the spiritual environment as well. And therefore it has an effect. When you are making shalom, therefore, between people, what you're doing is you're diffusing all of that negative energy, and you're making it a much more harmonious environment. And that's going to make, of course, the spiritual environment much more harmonious as well. That's on one level. The other level is that when we are making peace between people, the people, as we've discussed here, are often references to different of the spheros. So let's see how the author ties up shalom ben adam lechavero to the spheros. So he says, Shehem hatiferes v'hayesod. When we establish peace among people here, it establishes peace among the spheros there. And just as there's a mitzvah to establish peace among people here, there's also a mitzvah to try and specifically establish peace between the friends who are on high. Who are the friends on high? The chavero. The truth is, you might have thought it would be Netzach and Hod. But Netzach and Hod are called, usually like we saw earlier, Re'im She'enim Nifradim. The term a Rea, right? Like I said, Mishloach Manos, Ish Le'ehu. A Rea, which is more of like not just a friend, but a closer friend. So it could be that Netzach and Hod are referred to as Re'im Ahuvim, loving friends. Where here the term is chaver, like I mentioned earlier, the same word can be referring to somebody who has a good relationship with you, but it might also be somebody who just your fellow man. So perhaps for that reason, it's related more closely not to the relationship between Netzach and Hod, which are on the same level, right and left, but rather between Tiferes and Yesod, which are on different levels. And there's a connection between Tiferes and Yesod. Tiferes and Yesod are both central spheros, neither to the right or to the left. You can't say that therefore either one is distinctly masculine or feminine. They're neutral. So perhaps that's another reason why he calls these spheros, associates these spheros with making peace, ben adam lechaveroi, as opposed to making shalom ben ish leishtoi. Ish leishtoi would be right and left, chesed and gevurah. He's not talking about that here. He's talking about the same gender, as it were. In this case, maybe a neutral gender, there being central spheros. But ben adam lechavero, that's ben tiferes v'yasod. V'lefamim yisrachaku ze mizeh. Sometimes tiferes and yasod will separate themselves from one another. We spoke earlier, if you remember, about in the mitzvah of taking care of the needs of the dead, I think it was. Escorting the dead on the shoulders, I think that was what it was. And we spoke about how sometimes Malchus is separated, and Tiferes and Yesod, no, those were the wayfarers. I'm sorry, that was talking about the wayfarers, not escorting the dead. Malchus is in Galus, and Tiferes and Yesod are drawn after Malchus, like the masculine goes after the feminine, or like a person who's lost an object goes look to finding the lost object. And we spoke therefore how sometimes Tiferes and Yesod become dislocated from their place in their search, as it were, after Malchus. But there wasn't really a separation between Tiferes and Yesod, as we discussed it, right? Tiferes and Yesod, we discussed then, as having kind of like the same relationship with each other, but they were just dislocated together after Malchus. This is talking about something different than that. Right? It's like they're both out of their place, but they're also distancing themselves or distance from one another. Okay? There, we're looking at it that way. We're looking at them as being dislocated together after Malchus. Here, they're being dislocated or separated from each other. And that's a type of animosity. That's a type of tension. It would describe a certain type of tension in the spiritual realm. And it would be our job, when we're trying to fulfill the mitzvah of making shalom ben Adam lechavero, to bring these two spheros that are kind of turning away from each other, like two people who are in an argument, to establish peace between them and bring them back together. Tzarich lahashlimam, lefa'amim yisrachaku zeh mizeh, v'tzarich lahashlimam, and we have to make peace between them, ulesaknom, and to orient them, shehiyu shavim v'niksharim yachad ba'ava v'chiba, that they should be shavim, equal. V'niksharim yachad, and tied, connected to one another, bi'ava v'chiba. How can they be shavim if they're on different levels? And how can they be distancing themselves? What's he referring to? I think you see from here that he must be talking about distancing themselves not up and down, but right and left. Yeah? So that they're going away from each other, not this way, but this way. And that's why he says we reestablish them by making them equal. It can't be talking about laterally, so it must be talking about horizontally, right? So that's the pshat here, and that's what he's going to explain. They've distanced themselves, one to the right and one to the left. So what we have to do is try and reestablish and make balance and love between them. Ava v'chiva. And this is established through the quality of good deeds. Mitzvos. Maisim tovim. Shekasher yeh yesod note l'smol, because if you have a scenario where, for example, Yesod, that's the lower of the two spheros, is noted, leans to the left, el small, v'tiferes el yamin, and Tiferes would lean to the right, az hem negdim zeh lezeh. They are going in opposing directions, one from the other. Ad Yesod yate el yamin kemohu. What we want to do is bring the Yesod to lean back to the right, together like the Tiferes. But if has v'shalom there is some damage in the world that's caused because of transgression, az yesh sina v'negdius ben shneim. Then you have hatred, animosity, opposition between the two, between Tiferes and Yesod. Vein yichud niksha ben esfiros klal. And as a result of that, there's not going to be a unification interconnecting between the spheros at all. So what is he getting at here is as follows, is that if you have the spheres of Tiferes and Yesod, they're aligned one on top of the other. In the ideal state, they should be balanced properly, equally between right and left. Maybe leaning slightly towards the right. And we don't mean leaning, spatially leaning, even though we tend to present it diagrammatically. But the point is, the quality should be more towards Hesed than Din. The quality of Tiferes, by nature, even though it's represented as being in the central axis of the spheros, what we call the Omud Tavich, the central line of the spheros, going from Keser to Das, to Tiferes, to Yesod and Malchus, even though Tiferes is in the center, and like we said earlier, it's kind of neutral, neither male or female, in truth, it's viewed as being leaning towards the right. And that's because Tiferes is a mashpia. Tiferes gives, right? It gives down to Yesod. And therefore, as a mashpia, a giver to Yesod, it's viewed as having the quality of the masculine. And they're veering more towards the right, even though it's in the center. However, that's not the case regarding Yesod. Here, even though Yesod is in the middle of the axis, it's viewed as being leaning towards the left. And we don't mean spatially, again, leaning towards the left, but what we mean is, it has the quality of Gvura. It has the quality of Gvura. How does Yesod have the quality of Gvura? If yesterday we spoke about Malchus as being the Kala, the bride, because it has within it Kula, it has within it all of the influence of the other spheros, right? It's a receptacle for the Shefa coming down from all of the other spheros. In truth, Malchus gets from Yesod. Okay? So that Yesod itself actually gets all of that Shefa before it passes it on to Malchus. That means that all of the Shefa is really initially collected in Yesod. Initially, it's collected in Yesod before it's given off to Malchus. What that means is that all of the Shefa that's been separated is now condensed. And the condensation, as it were, of all of that Shefa into that one point of Yesod is a type of a Gvura. It's not expansive, it's contractive, right? Tiferes is expansive, but Yesod is kind of limiting. It's taking all of those different pieces and collecting it and limiting into that one place. So the aspect of Yesod, which is referred to sometimes by the term kol. If Malchus is kala, so Tiferes is sometimes referred to as kol. Why? Because it becomes like that pre-receptacle for everything, kol, for everything. And the fact that it is therefore restrictive in that respect makes it like towards the left, towards Gvura. So you're going to have a scenario, therefore, where there's an actual separation of Tiferes leaning to the right, but for whatever reason, Yesod might be leaning to the left. And if they're out of line, then when Tiferes is looking to be mashpia to Yesod, it's not going to be there. And things will be out of line. So you think about, for example, if you have a window, you have a room that has two windows which are opposite one another. You can be outside the room and look all the way through to the other side. Everything that's out there can be seen all the way over there, as far as you can see. Right? However, if the windows are offset, even though here you could see everything that way, and from there you can see everything this way, but you can't, there's no connection. It's not mufulash. There's no connection one from the other. So that would be the problem here. If you've got Tiferes aligned to the right, and you've got Yesod aligned to the left, so the Shefa, as high as you can go from Tiferes upward, and as low as you can go from Malchus downward, you're not going to have an alignment between Tiferes and Malchus, so that Shefa should be able to go straight from highest point all the way down to the lowest point, which is what we were talking about yesterday. Being able to bring down through the koach of tefillah from Keser all the way down to Malchus. But if the spheros of Tiferes and Yesod are out of line, you won't be able to do that. How do we bring them into alignment? Well, they're brought into alignment through, like he says here, learning Torah, Ma'aseh Tov. Ma'aseh Tov generally means good deeds. But we know that Tov is also a byword for Torah. Like it says, Lekach Tov nosati lechem, toirosi al ta'azavu. I gave you a good taking, a lekach tov. What is that good taking? The Torah. How do I know? Because the verse continues in the Torah, see, my Torah, don't let it go. So that implies what I gave you, which is good, is the Torah. And now that I've given you good Torah, don't let it go. So the Torah is called Tov. And Ma'aseh Tov, therefore, of course, could be the general good deeds that people do. But it could also be the Ma'aseh Tov, meaning the action of Tov, which is Torah, the learning of the Torah. And of course, the Torah is the inspiration for doing the good deeds. So through Torah learning and doing good deeds, one brings these spheres in alignment. And generally, the way that happens is by pulling Yesod towards the center, and towards the right, and towards the center, in order to bring Yesod in line with Tiferes. Shekasher Yesod note l'smol. So now when Yesod is leaning to the left, and I've tried to explain why Yesod has a tendency to lean, as it were, to the left, and when Tiferes they mean, and Tiferes to the right, I've tried to explain why Tiferes has a general tendency to the right. Zem nigdim. Now they're opposite, meaning they're pulling in different directions. Zeh lezeh. Achi Yesod. So what one is that these good deeds should bring Yesod back to the right in order to be in alignment with Tiferes. But if there is some harm that comes about through transgression in the world, then you have this type of animosity, as it were, between them. Tiferes might be to the right, but Yesod is going to be to the left. Vein yichud nikshar ben asfiros klal. And in this way, you can't have a yichud, which would be otherwise interconnected in the spheros at all. And this is where my analogy with the windows would be applicable. Yeah? Because if they're out of line, then they're not going to be connecting the spheros, upper and lower, at all. Everything's going to be out of whack. The sphere of Yesod is also referred to not only as kol, like I said before, but also shalom. Shalom. So that, for example, remember we spoke about how Chesed is Avram, and Devorah is Yitzchak, Tiferes is Yaakov, Netzach is Moshe, Hod is Aaron, right? Yesod is Yosef. Malchus is David. Malchus David, right? So Yesod is Shalom. Yesod is Shalom. There's a connection between the sphere of Yesod, which is Yosef, which is Tzaddik, which is Shalom. Okay? Yesod, Yosef, Tzaddik, Shalom. So Ose Shalom ben Adam lechavero could also mean making sure that the sphere of Yesod, which is Shalom, Ose Shalom ben Adam lechavero. How would it work out? Maybe verkehrt. I think the author actually says this a bit later on.
Like the song of Say Shalom.
Yes. Yes. The mitzvah here is Hava Shalom ben Adam lechavero, the bringing about of peace between a person and his fellow man. But there's also included there making Shalom ben Adam Ishtoi, between husband and wife, which I said would not be up and down, would be right and left. So, okay, maybe hold this point about Shalom for just a minute. So and so on. Oh, here's the point. Yeah. Similarly, just as we want to bring into alignment the spheres which are above and below each other, namely Tiferes and Yesod, so the same thing applies between the spheres which are connected to each other right to left. Right? And therefore he says, the same thing will apply regarding each of the two spheros, Shem Yamin Small, which are right and left. For example, Ben Chochma Vebina, or Ben Chesed V'Gvura, or between Chesed to the right and Gvura to the left, or Ben Netzach V'Chod, between Netzach and Chod. Tzarich Lachnis Shalom B'neihem. We have to make peace between them. Have to bring peace between them. This would fit in to what we would say making Shalom ben Ish li'ishto, ben Adam li'ishto, making peace between right and left. What's the problem there? If in the lateral axis the problem is going right to left, yeah, certainly here when you're talking about spheres which are on the same level as each other, to either extreme right or left, the problem is that one could go more to the right and one could go more to the left. And there's going to be therefore a distance between them. That this is going to cause a type of a friction. So what we want to do is bring shalom between them. Hainu havas shalom ben adam lechaveroi. That would be brought about through bringing peace between them. Maybe here's the pshat that I was suggesting before. But shalom is, we said, Yesod is Yosef, which is Tzaddik, which is shalom. So Hava Shalom ben Adam lechavero ben Ish le'ishto would be bringing, since in the end of the day, Yesod is a central sphera, it would bring, right, putting shalom between the two extremes would talk about bringing them together, meaning bringing each one closer towards the middle, towards Yesod. Maybe another possibility might be that if Yesod is leaning in the direction of the left, towards the Gvura, towards Dinim, so that's also going to prevent a proper union between the spheros right and left. But when we do Torah study and we do these Maisim Tovim, what we're doing is we're actually bringing equilibrium into Yesod, the result is necessarily that it's going to bring the spheros together as well. In fact, if people are acting in a way which might, let's say, be an expression of Devorah, they're acting with dinim, so that's actually going to cause the sphere of Devorah also to become more extreme. And since Devorah is associated with Yesod, right, the moving of Devorah to the far left can actually bring Yesod in that direction as well. But doing Maisim Tovim, which would be to mitigate that Devorah, moving towards the Chesed, would bring Devorah back to its proper place on the left, and therefore it would shift Yesod into the proper place as well. And the result would be that there would be Shalom, Yesod would be properly balanced between Ish v'Ishtoi, right and left. V'chen ben Ish l'Ishto. The same thing regarding making peace between a man and his wife. Dainu a Yesod. This is a reference to the Yesod, which is Shalom. That's what I've mentioned. Yesod is Yosef, which is Tzaddik, which is Shalom. You often find the names Shalom and Yosef go together. There's a name, Shalom Yosef, or Yosef Shalom. Do you know of anyone like that? Huh? Yeah, who? Huh? Does that name combination ring a bell? Yeah, who? Huh? Rabbi Yashiv Tzal? Yeah. Yosef Shalom. So, Yosef and Shalom. In any case, Uben ish li'ishtoi, dahainu Yesod, that is Shalom. So we're bringing peace between them, that's Shalom, that's Yesod. Ben Atiferes v'Malchus. And also between the Tiferes and Malchus. Oh, that's how he explains it. So what's Hava Shalom ben? So until now he's been talking about Hava Shalom ben Adam lechaveroi, either between Tiferes and Yesod, yeah, or between spheros which are on opposite sides. Now he's saying you can also establish peace, which is Shalom ben Ish le'Ishto, where the Ish is Tiferes and Ishto is Malchus. So through these good deeds, what you're doing is you're bringing Shalom, which is Yesod, in between Ish v'Ishto, which is Tiferes and Malchus. So it's a mitzvah to make Hava Shalom ben Ish l'Ishto. Very good. What's the pshat? Hava Shalom ben Ish l'Ishto. What is Shalom? Shalom is Yesod. Shalom is Yesod. And what you're doing is you're bringing the Yesod to be properly aligned between Ish, that's Tiferes, and Malchus, which is Ishto. And that's going to enable that flow to come down properly. The result of this proper alignment or union between Tiferes and Malchus, which is husband to wife, is going to be a proper flow of Shefa, which means that the establishment of Yesod in its proper place, whose quality is Shalom, is going to bring about Bracha. And therefore we actually do find that Shalom is very closely associated with everything having to do with Bracha. Like we say, Osei Shalom b'mramav, Hu yaseh Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'emru, Amen. Or we say, for example, En lecha kli machzik bracha kmo a Shalom. We have no vessel which makes a proper receptacle for bracha like peace. That's what the sages say. That Shalom makes a proper receptacle for bracha. Therefore, putting Yesod in the proper place, which is Shalom, brings about the shefa, the bracha that goes from Tiferes to Malchus. And why is Yesod called Shalom? Why is Yesod called Shalom? Just like it's called Kol. Why is it called Kol? Because we said it contains within it everything. So it's also called Shalom, related to Sholem. It's complete. It completes all of the filtering of the different spheros into that finer receptacle before it passes on to Malchus. That's another reason why Yesod is called Shalom. Therefore, ein lecha kli machzik bracha k'mo Shalom. You don't have a kli which is associated with the receiving of bracha like Shalom, which is Yesod. Because if Yesod receives from the upper spheres properly, that ensures that Malchus is going to receive that bracha. So that Yesod is actually the conduit through which the bracha flows. So shalom is peace, is shalom, its completeness, its shleimus, its perfection. V'chol kiyotze b'zeh midarkei shalom, and all of the different manifestations or expressions of peaceful ways, like we say regarding the Torah, darkeha, darkei noyam. How does the continuation go? Shalom. So the ways of the Torah are pleasant, and all of its paths are shalom. That when we act properly according to the Torah, the result is that all of the pathways of the Shefa coming down through the Spheros should arrive properly where? In Shalom, in the sphere of Yesod. And once they do so, it's passed on to Malchus and then to us. V'hu gemilas chesed lemalo. And this is a wonderful way of establishing peace on high. Because that's what we're talking about here. Using these different manifestations of Maaseh Chesed to do Chesed with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. How do we do Chesed with the Kadosh Baruch Hu? By doing these acts of Chesed here, we actually positively contribute to the Spheros there. And therefore, when we are making peace, specifically between people, between a husband and wife, we're actually establishing peace above on high as well, making sure that you have a fluid flow of the different spheros and so forth and so on. And the result of all of that is going to be the bracha. And the bracha is the shalom. Okay? Very good. Let's end here today. And that's the completion of this relatively long chapter on Chesed. It's been somewhat of a long haul. From now on, we're going to go through chapter by chapter, dedicated to each of the individual spheros. But each chapter is generally much shorter than the one on Chesed.